Hey, Dr. C here with you. Let's talk about how sleep supports metabolic health. For starters, metabolic health, let's define that. This is where your blood sugar, your cholesterol, and your body's weight just fall into balance. There's low levels of disease risk, pretty steady blood sugar levels, which means brain and energy stay steady and good, and things are working well. Your body can burn fuel appropriately and store fuel as needed, but not store excessive amounts of fuel. And there's been a lot of data now showing that sleep may be as big as diet and exercise in maintaining good metabolic health. We know that a big part of this relates to sleep's hormonal effects. Things like insulin, cortisol, and growth hormone are regulated by our sleep cycles. And all of these are on a circadian rhythm, meaning that we make different amounts at different times per day. Think about how radically different your mind works when you're wide awake, like now, versus maybe 12 hours ago when you were deep asleep. And all of your body is like that. Things are on this circadian pattern. And when there's not good sleep, the whole rhythm is off. And you're partially asleep when you should be awake, like asleep at the wheel in very literal ways. But poor sleep is also a trigger for things like diabetes, fatty liver, and heart disease. And the reason why is because sleep is the time in which your body does most of its energy regulation. Specifically, your liver can take glucose and make that into glycogen. So we take a kind of healthy carbohydrate in the diet and make it into a form that our liver stores. And that's great because we use glucose for fuel. We need glucose for our brain to function properly. But furthermore, we need stored glucose to burn fat. We can't burn dietary fat effectively if we have too little glycogen in the liver. In fact, when we have too little glycogen in the liver, the fat builds up, and that's fatty liver disease. And this further worsens metabolism. We also know that cravings come about. So when sleep is not right, ghrelin goes up, leptin goes down, and our drive for food becomes out of range of what our bodies really need. So what we know is that sleep deprivation and weight gain can go hand in hand. And when they occur, it changes how much food we want, which types of food we want, and how much of those. Our appetite for more calorie-dense, low-nutrient foods gets up much higher than it would be otherwise. And then, of course, there's other vicious cycles. We feel more tired, our fatigue is worse, and we don't really want to exercise. And when that happens, we don't get played out, we don't get tired in a healthy way, and we get less quality sleep afterward. So this all makes this big cycle of less physical activity, more low-grade fatigue and depression, and then disordered eating, stress-related eating, and changes in food preferences. No one really wants to eat healthy foods when they're under stress and their sleep is bad. So the important thing is to know that this is stuff that can be taken care of, that sleep's role is something that affects us both in the long term and also in the short term in terms of our immediate cravings. So we think too about what are the factors that perpetuate this and make us more vulnerable to sleep not being right. Well, stress, chronic stressors, and especially when they disrupt cortisol. So what happens is that when we've got a good stress response, we make cortisol in the morning and we shut it off at night. But if our stress response is too high, and that's compounded by not enough time for sleep or poor quality sleep, our cortisol doesn't shut off and it stays up. And that puts our body into a mode of storage. They talk about fight or flight, but the other F is famine. Our body acts as if it's in a famine state. When we have deep, high quality sleep, that's what lowers our cortisol and turns off the stress response and helps our body not need as much work in managing the stress response. We don't have to put as much into stress management practices when we have good, deep sleep. And when these things go off long term, we have a lot of evidence that this is really a precursor to weight gain, metabolic syndrome, and then cardiovascular risks. So that's the importance of quality sleep. And what's useful here, I'm going to talk about some practical strategies to improve your sleep, help weight loss be easier and improve your metabolism. Some of the biggest things that are important, the first one is getting consistent routines, doing the same things at about the same time of day. Main factors there are when you have your first meal, all the meals matter, but the first meal affects a lot, and what time you wake up. This is probably your number one thing to think about, is having a consistent wake up time. Now, the pitfall in the modern world is that, maybe we work during the week and we have the weekends off. And the workday might start earlier than we like. And we might want to enjoy more time in the evening on our days off from work. So people end up sleeping in on the weekends. And I don't fault anyone, but your body doesn't quite get what's going on. So the latest time you wake up is like the high water mark. Your body thinks, oh, this is the time I'm going to wake up. I woke up at 9 o'clock Saturday morning. That must be my wake up time. And the trick here is that it's easier to have your body get used to waking up later than it is to waking up earlier. The second one is hard to do. So it's very easy to push your sleep cycle later, but it takes time to push it back. So if you sleep in Saturday morning, that's now the new baseline. And that's the baseline for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Somewhere around Thursday or Friday, you're starting to figure out, oh, wait a minute, I'm not waking up at 9 o'clock. I'm waking up at 6 o'clock. I guess I got to get ready to wake up at 6 o'clock. So you start coming around, and Thursday, Friday, you're getting into the groove, and you don't feel as bad because now you're used to waking up early again on Friday. But then Saturday starts all over again. You'll sleep in late, and your body says, oh, I wake up at 9 o'clock. And so all then Saturday through Thursday, you're expecting to wake up at 9 o'clock, but you don't. And this is where all those problems come in from. So yeah, the morning wake time is the biggest single thing. Other big habits, getting light exposure in the morning, that also tells that your brain, this is now morning. This is time to get going, and this is time to start out. So light, it's not just flipping the switch. It's really being outdoors. You know, the nature of light and the intensity of it, we don't really get it inside. If you live somewhere to where it's dark when you wake up, it's worth having ways to have artificial sunlight. They make light boxes and light visors that make light of a higher intensity and a special waveform that'll mimic the sunlight better. The other things to think about are strategies for foods that promote restful sleep. Those that are high in magnesium. There's actually foods high in melatonin and foods high in complex carbohydrates. Some of the best ones for magnesium are going to be things like almonds, pinto beans, spinach. Melatonin, funny thing here, pistachios, cherries are very high in melatonin. And they're not the same as taking a melatonin pill. They contain amounts that are higher than in pills, and they don't spike your melatonin right afterward. So you can eat those anytime throughout the day, and they will help you with your own melatonin release at nighttime. And then last up, complex carbohydrates, especially those high in glucose. And the trick here is any time in day is fine for them, but you don't want to skimp on them in the evening. If your diet is way too low in good carbs in the evening, your body has to expend cortisol, the stress hormone, to raise your glucose because there's no glucose coming in from your diet. So where does glucose come from? Think about like brown rice or squash or sweet potatoes or black beans. But yeah, vegetable starches, whole grains, beans, legumes, these are all sources of glucose. And having a nice serving of those in the evening allows your body to keep cortisol low. Cortisol raises blood sugar, and if there's no glucose that can do it to a gentle degree, your body makes more cortisol. And if you ramp up cortisol at night, you're not going to sleep well. You're going to throw all these things off. You can learn more about this and understand more about how your adrenals tie in by reading the Adrenal Reset Diet book. I wrote this book explaining how you can use diet and time carbohydrates to get a good cortisol rhythm back again and improve sleep. Another great resource is the Adrenal Quiz. Just check adrenalquiz.com. You can find out for free if you may be off on your circadian rhythm, and if so, by what degree, and what are some things that can help with that. So Dr. Christianson here with you. Your sleep is a big part of your overall health, especially when it comes to your metabolic health. And if yours is not right, it can be fixed. No one has a broken sleeper. Yours can come back online again. All right, take great care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.